We have been told for weeks now that Highguard was a passion project made by an independent team who didn't want to work at these big companies anymore. They wanted to forge their own path and create something amazing. And now we're finding out that Tencent quietly funded Highguard as this game is falling apart. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, whenever I hear Tencent being invested in a certain company, it's not that surprising because they have invested in dozens and dozens of companies within the video game industry and the entertainment spaces. But the fact that this was hidden and the developers were presenting themselves as something completely different is wild to me. Now, they never said, oh, we invested personally in this game. They simply said that they were fully funded. They were not disclosing who was funding them, but now we know and it doesn't look good. The game's webpage is down, and apparently they're saying it's going to go back up and they're just transferring it. I don't know if I necessarily believe that. This game has fallen apart in a few short weeks because it is already under 1,000 players, 852 in game right now while I'm recording this. But yeah, this hidden funding raises a lot of transparency concerns. We know companies generally like to keep information as close to the chest as possible, but when you are trying to get people to really invest their money in you and your product and support you monetarily and give you a shot, you need to be transparent. And they weren't. And it wasn't the only reason why this game fell apart, but it still is not a good look because whenever one of these developers goes to a new project, we're going to go, oh, what are you hiding from us this time? We're going to question, oh, is this game going to be like Highguard? Is it going to fall apart in a few short weeks? Should we really invest our time and money into it? Though it says it turns out that the Chinese company Tencent was the financial backer funding Wild Light's live service shooter disaster Highguard. The troubled trajectory of Highguard just took another turn, and this one is raising serious questions about transparency, funding influence, and the long-term viability of the game itself. A new report has revealed that the Chinese tech and gaming giant Tencent was quietly bankrolling the project behind the scenes, a financial connection that was never publicly disclosed prior to the game's launch. Now, as player numbers crater, developers are laid off, and the game's official website goes dark, that funding revelation is adding fuel to an already growing fire. So according to reporting highlighted by GameFile and picked up by multiple outlets, Highguard developer Wildlight Entertainment was financially backed by Tencent, a detail that had not been publicly clarified during the game's development or marketing cycle. Prior to the disclosure, Wildlight had described itself simply as a fully funded studio without naming the source of that funding. I'm not surprised to hear that a company has a major financial backer. A lot of companies do. But you have to respect your audience enough to just come out and say, yeah, we're working with Tencent. This is how we got the money to create our project. And that is that. And that would have been okay. That would have been acceptable. Again, every single time a new company is working with Tencent, we don't all freak out and call it out and boycott games because of it, because they were transparent. This makes me want to never trust these developers ever again, because if they're willing to hide this, what else are they going to hide? And of course, when you have really tried to set yourselves up to be almost like indie darlings, and it seems like you wanted to pull a Sandfall Interactive. Yeah, you know that people are going to show up to try to support you. In the case of a Sandfall Interactive, it's very rare for developers to break off from these large studios like Ubisoft and go into making something that blows up, but I am more willing to give independent creators or teams wiggle room because they're trying something new and unique. Whereas with AAA companies, it's over. Now, I think anyone with half of a brain knew that they were getting some pretty major funding from some pretty major players because, first of all, they highlighted their trailer at the Game Awards, which is $1 million for the slot they had. And we know that Jeff had bumped them up to the last place. People are even questioning if Jeff Keighley did that intentionally because he does have an ongoing partnership with Tencent. I think that it was always meant to be shown at the Game Awards, so like it is what it is. I don't necessarily think, ooh, Jeff Keighley is promoting this game and bumped it up just because of a tie to Tencent. I think that he did actually believe it was going to be the next big game, but you have to question where that money was coming from. So we all knew that, well, they had $1 million to throw at that, and they paid some of the biggest streamers on Twitch and YouTube to promote this game and to highlight it on release day. So clearly they had a few $1 million towards marketing, never mind the development budget. But it's just disappointing to see that more studios are lying to us yet again. If this was a better game, I would be really disappointed and like heartbroken over this, because Wildlight is a clusterfuck and because Highguard is a failure. It doesn't affect me that much, but it just goes to show that we can't simply support developers who leave these major studios because they want to go create something new, because you end up with situations like this. There are a lot of threads talking about this on X, so it's a little sus that Jeff Keighley's Game Awards show has the president of Tencent on the board of said show, showed Highguard last, and it comes out that Highguard was funded by Tencent all along, and people are clarifying in the comments saying, I'm surprised so many people don't understand what this means. Keighley is incentivized or forced to market and award games to appeal to the board, which happens to be the people in control of the very gaming companies that are being promoted in the show. Now, obviously, when you look at how Clair Obscure Expedition 33 had swept the Game Awards in 2025, I don't think that we can fully believe that Jeff Keighley has only promoted something like Highguard simply because of the board, because in that case, Clair Obscure Expedition 33 would have basically won nothing, because it goes against every principle that we know of the video game industry, every established rule, and they broke off from Ubisoft. But at the same time, I do think that yes, with marketing slots or ad slots, that definitely does exist to a certain extent, that you want to keep your investors happy and you want to keep the people who turn the lights on happy. This is getting so much traction though, and I'm sure Wildlight is not happy about this, but I guess there's not that many people to not be happy, as they laid off most of the developers. Right here in this The Game Business interview, they said we're an independent studio without the support of a big organization, which is a complete and utter lie. You can't say you're an independent studio without the support of a big organization, but have Tencent as one of your primary investors. You have to voice the truth to people, or else you're going to get annihilated for it, which is what is happening. You guys look like fucking clowns right now. Am I really surprised to see this happening? No. But is it still a really bad look for gaming in general? Yes. It makes it that much harder to support these independent developers that come forward. In my opinion, Highguard always looked like a classic example of AAA slop. It's like they wanted to copy things that they previously worked on, such as Apex Legends, but they weren't able to capture the magic simply because there weren't enough of those previous team members working on this game. It was very clear that they had quite a bit of money to put towards this, and all in all, it's just not a good look. So I'm certain the servers are going to go offline soon. Again, they went from 97,000 players 23 days ago to 852 today, and this game is completely cooked. But that's all that I had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this important and informative, make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.